Hello everyone, Big Loud Noise here. Wanted to share with you this video I recorded in September of 2012 of Westdale Mall in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. This is a mall which no longer exists. It was torn down in about 2014-2015 or so. It had been a dying mall for, probably 10 or 15 years before then at least. This was a mall I do not know the exact history of, but it was built in the late 70s, and it was the first fully enclosed mall in Cedar Rapids, as far as I'm aware. Then over on the other side of town, I believe in the 80s, Lindale Mall, the second mall in the city, was built. And it, at first, was not a fully enclosed mall, but eventually it was fully enclosed. And when that happened, I believe it was in the early 90s when that happened, when they fully enclosed Lindale, is when this mall here that you see, Westdale Mall, started to slowly go downhill. But I remember in the early 90s coming to this mall as a kid, and this was the mall to come to. And it was better than Lindale. It was the better of the two malls. But here we see it in 2012. It had already gone significantly downhill, and believe it or not, it even went further down before it finally closed and got torn down. And so, as you see me here, I'm walking through the mall, and I profusely apologize for the shaky video. I was recording this with a crappy smartphone held close to my body because I didn't really want it to be really obvious that I was recording video, because technically I wasn't allowed to do so. And so we were having the shaky video as a result. So I strongly recommend, if you are currently watching this video in full screen, pause it and exit full screen before you resume. Otherwise, you're going to be feeling pretty sick by the end of this video. But anyway, here we're walking through the upper level of Westdale Mall. We came in on the west side near the JCPenney's, which is the north anchor, and we're kind of walking down towards the center west side of the mall. This right here used to be a Von Maur. Right there on the right, we're walking by one of the many now closed jewelry stores. That right there used to be a Maid-Rite restaurant. Now this, one thing about Westdale Mall which I found really strange is that they never ever had a proper food court. Instead, they just had these random scatterings of restaurants, eateries, cafes, things like that. There was never a central food court. But yeah, this used to be the Maid-Rite. I remember eating there with my grandmother several times. And there's one of the jewelry stores, probably actually the only jewelry store that's still open as far as I can recall here. But now we're kind of walking around there looking into the Maid-Rite. And if you're not from Iowa or from the Midwest, you might not know what Maid-Rite is. It's basically a sloppy Joe, but without the sauce. It's just loose meat hamburger, but it's really good. But you just, as I'm walking through this mall in this video, you can just see empty storefront after empty storefront after empty storefront, with every now and then a store that's still open. Now, I visited this mall again about, a month or two before it finally closed for good. And the very few stores that you see open in this video here, most of them were closed. Really, the only places that were still open when I visited it that one last time were a couple small mom-and-pop stores and the two anchors. Here's the other anchor we're coming up right now. It's Younkers. Younkers and JCPenney were the only two anchors left when this mall closed. You see, there's a kind of a, I believe that's a Hallmark store. But yeah, Younkers and JCPenney were the only two anchors left. Von Maur closed, I'm tempted to say, like 5, maybe 10 years before the mall did. And then there was a fourth anchor. See, looking down there on the Chick-Fil-A, that's really the makeshift food court that was left there at the end. But the fourth anchor was a Montgomery Ward's, and of course Montgomery Ward's went bankrupt. I don't know why I was so interested in that QR code, but Montgomery Ward's went bankrupt like in the late 90s, early 2000s, and shut down all their stores. When the Montgomery Ward's closed, that's when this mall really started to go downhill, when Westdale really started to go under. And just keep walking around here, you just see all these closed up, walled off storefronts. Like I said, in the early 90s, between Westdale, this mall here, and Lindale, the one across the city, this was the mall to go to. Westdale was the better of the two. And then what happened is Lindale, they started upgrading, they started improving, while Westdale started to stagnate. And eventually it came to this point where, ironically, while Westdale was getting ready to close, Lindale was building an addition. And I think the reason I stopped there to look at that store right there is because that used to be the RadioShack. And I remember going into the RadioShack when I was a kid. I liked visiting the RadioShack at Westdale. And as we're kind of walking along here, you can see like the dance studio we're passing on the right here, and you see a lot of, like I said, other than empty storefronts, you also see a lot of storefronts where there's not actually a store in there, but they're just using it for advertising, like they'll put stuff in the windows, but really it's just an ad of some sort. But the few stores that were open, I no people in them, but the stores looked good at least, if that's really saying anything. But yeah, as we're just kind of walking around the corner here, now we're kind of heading in the direction of where the Montgomery Wards used to be. Now, one thing about Westdale Mall is that it kind of had a brief hiatus on its downfall, so to speak. And now we're kind of walking down the wing towards where the Montgomery Wards is. And while I was recording this video, I totally forgot that the Montgomery Wards even used to be there, because they had done such a good job of kind of walling that off that I totally forgot it. But anyway, like I was saying, Westdale Mall kind of had a little hiatus on its eventual downfall, because in 2008, Cedar Rapids had a significant record flooding event, and a lot of the city government offices, the public library, their buildings got flooded out. And what they did is they moved out here to the empty space in Westdale Mall. And those glass doors there, those are actually offices where a lot of the city and the county offices had been while they were out here after the flood. Now, by the time I had recorded this video, 2012, they had moved back to their old offices or to newly built offices. Really, at the time I recorded this video, the only city government agency, or not really government, the only city agency still at Westdale Mall was the public library, the Cedar Rapids Public Library. And you'll kind of be seeing them here a little later in the video. But yeah, you just walk. I'm walking laps around this mall, and you just see easily 75% of it is empty. 2 of the 4 anchors are empty, and 75% of the rest of the stores, I'd estimate, are empty. And that was at the time I recorded this video. Like I said, I went back again about 2 years later, about a month or so before it finally closed, and it was significantly worse then. I unfortunately did not get any video, but I did take some pictures that you will be seeing at the end of this video. But yeah, it just kind of speaks for itself. Empty storefront, empty storefront, empty storefront. I've seen quite a few dead and dying malls in my lifetime, and probably the only one I've seen worse off than this one, than Westdale, is Crossroads Mall in Omaha, Nebraska. That is a mall where it's a 2-story mall, and literally the entire upper floor is closed. You can't go up there anymore. That's where the food court used to be. But that's a subject for another video, which I don't know if or when I'll be able to record it. Because Crossroads, they're a little bit more strict on their rules when it comes to recording video, taking pictures. And again, Westdale also has the same rules. Again, I'll apologize for the shaky video. That's why. And see, there's an example of a storefront where it's just being used for advertising. But yeah, I'll apologize again for the shaky video, because Westdale also did not like people taking video or pictures. So I was having to hold the camera close to my body. Okay, so here's the JCPenney, and we've basically just done a complete lap of the upper level. So now we are going to go down to the lower level. And admittedly, this is one thing that Westdale at the time still had going for it. The escalators were still working. And a lot of the dead malls that I've been to, and a lot of the dead mall videos I've seen other people record, the escalators are usually turned off. But here, they're still working. Okay, and now we're going to do another lap in the same direction around the lower floor here. This right here, I didn't really do a very good job of taking it, but the store we're passing on the right there, that used to be the KB Toys. That's another store I remember from my childhood. And there's the lower level of the JCPenney. And that right there that we're looking at, that used to be the Pearl Vision glasses place. Now, what they did with Westdale Mall, after it closed in 2014, early 2015, they tore down the central part of the mall, and they tore down the Von Maur. No, I take that back. They left the Von Maur, they tore down the central part, and they tore down the Montgomery Ward's buildings. They left the JCPenney's, and they left the Younkers. And what they're currently in the process of doing, as of right now, today is December 8th, 2017, there's the library right there. There's the Cedar Rapids Public Library. But what they're doing with Westdale Mall right now is that they're redeveloping it into kind of like one of those more open-air, outdoor shopping centers. There's more of the library right there. There's their computer center. And then there's some library offices. But what they're doing with Westdale, in addition, along with an outdoor shopping center, they're also redeveloping it into office spaces. They're going to build a hotel. I believe they're going to build up an apartment building as well. And you see, there's more of the library there. The library was taking up multiple storefronts because it's Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It's not an overly large city. It's about 125,000 people, but it's the second largest city in Iowa. in Iowa terms, Cedar Rapids is large. Overall, probably not. But the library took up a lot of space on the lower level. It took up multiple storefronts. But now we're kind of past the library and we're walking by more closed, more empty storefronts. There's the one, you just saw the one open jewelry store again. And there's where the Von Maur used to be. And then what I think was another jewelry store. See, of course, I don't remember what a lot of these stores were, because before I recorded this video, it had probably been at least 10 years since I last stepped foot in Westdale Mall. Yeah, I'm thinking that used to be a jewelry store, because it's got those little display cases. But Westdale Mall, just from the architecture of a lot of the stores, seems like it had a lot of jewelry stores, or a lot of giftware stores. And see, now, this section of the lower level seemed to have the most number of active open stores. It was mostly mom and pop giftware, sports memorabilia right there. See, that used to be an AE store, but now at the time I recorded this video, it's sports memorabilia. But this little section that I'm walking through right now, this at the time was the most active part of the mall. And it's near the Younkers end. Now, one thing I noticed while I was walking around recording this video, along with no food court, I couldn't see any public restrooms anywhere. Yes, there were water fountains, there were pay phones, but there were no public restrooms. Not in the mall common areas anyway. So I'm guessing they expected you to go into one of the anchors to use the restrooms. And again, the video is kind of really shaky here. I apologize for that. We're kind of getting down near where a little children's play area was, and I was trying to kind of be a little more careful with my camera. In fact, here in about a moment or so, I'm just going to point it at the floor while I walk by the children. I didn't want to cause any alarm or anything. There's what I think used to be another jewelry store, I'm not sure. And there's the lower level of Younkers. When I first came in here to record this video, I was convinced the Younkers was closed. I was surprised to see it open. Okay, now we're going to kind of walk by the kids area, so enjoy about 10-15 seconds of the floor there. Also, we're kind of walking by Chick-Fil-A. That was, like I said earlier, the makeshift food court at the time. But the mall never actually had a proper food court. The only mall I know of. And then there's like a little candy popcorn store that was open. And of course, the typical salon beauty products that you find in dead malls. And then this strange little thing here. No idea what it was. Something made out of brass instruments. And then here's another storefront being used solely for advertising. Now, a lot of dead malls that I've been in, a lot of the empty storefronts are used for advertising, but Westdale, a lot of them were just downright empty. Just empty spots. And this fairly large store here seemed to have a lot of giftware and stuff. It looked pretty interesting, but at the time I didn't really have time to go in. And then here's kind of like an Asian knick-knack type store. That's another thing you tend to see in a lot of dead and dying malls. Crossroads Mall has one in Omaha. I like those stores, actually. I admit I like those stores. And then what used to be, I believe, a cookie shack, Great American Cookies, whatever. Closed, of course. Alright, now, right after I went by this corner, rounded this corner here by the Eddie Bauer, Straight in front of us is a Chinese restaurant that was the absolute best Chinese restaurant in the area. I seriously was surprised that this was still open. I was convinced that it was closed, but here it was, still open. And I did make sure to go there one more time before the mall closed, about a year or so later after I recorded this video. And so now we're kind of walking. I was kind of confused here at a moment. I didn't know whether that was supposed to be the Lens Crafters or the Pearl Vision. But here we're kind of walking on the lower level towards where the Montgomery Wards used to be. And here's where some of the old architecture of the mall, the 70s-ness, that logo just screams 70s to me. And if that's not enough retroness for you, look at this doorway. I see this doorway and I hear disco music in my head. 70s. This mall, that's the remnant 70s of this mall. But yeah, there's where the Montgomery Wards used to be. At the time I recorded this video, I did not remember that. I knew down here on the lower floor something used to be there, but I couldn't remember what. But now we're kind of continuing along. At this point, we're about I'd say about 66% of the way through the lower level. About 80% through the whole mall. But yeah, this Chinese restaurant here. I remember coming here a lot as a kid with my mom. And it was just really good. And I'm glad I got to go there one last time before the mall finally closed. Once I realized that that place was still open. And here we go, more closed storefronts. It was honestly, it was sad. It was sad to see Westdale Mall in such a state of disrepair and emptiness. It's bad. And I didn't have any that day, but I always like putting coins in those little swirly things and watching them spin around and go down. But yeah, it was sad. Westdale Mall, like I said, is not as bad as Crossroads Mall in Omaha. Crossroads Mall has a stagnant, moldy, musty smell that fills the air. Westdale Mall, I do not, even at towards the end, I do not recall Westdale Mall ever having that. And then there's this, like, paper press thing. I think that's part of the library, too. But yeah, we're kind of back around to the library now. And we're kind of walking towards the JCPenney one last time. But yeah, Westdale Mall, it still saddened me. Because I had so many good childhood memories. And Pretzel Maker. I like Pretzel Maker. I like Auntie Anne's pretzels. Something I think I forgot to mention. The main part of the library, which we just passed back there, that used to be an Osco drug, which was kind of also like an semi-unofficial anchor, I guess you could call it. I remember the Osco drug. That was a neat place. I don't think Osco drug exists at all anywhere, at least not here in Iowa. I haven't seen an Osco drug literally ever since the one in Westdale Mall closed. Here we're kind of looking at a directory. And while I was looking at this directory, I noticed that it said GameStop on it. And so I got looking at the map there, trying to figure out, well, wait a minute, where's the GameStop? I didn't see a GameStop. And that's when I realized that the mall was in such a bad state that they couldn't even keep their directory up to date. And here we're walking by what used to be the KB Toys again. And I always got to look at claw machines. I like playing the claw machines. almost never anything good in them, but when there is, I like playing claw machines. But yeah, here I'm kind of looking back down the mall in the direction where the map claims the GameStop is supposed to be, but of course, it's not there. So now we're gonna head back upstairs, and we've pretty much seen the entire mall. I did not go in any of the Younkers or in any of the other stores because I was kind of on a schedule. I had something that I needed to do, and I just wanted to do a quick lap around, which actually ended up being almost half an hour. So yeah, that was a tour of the dying Westdale Mall in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, as of September 4th, 2012. They're kind of looking down the length of the mall. And what I'll do is I will post a few pictures at the end of this video that I took not long before the mall closed. And they'll be... You really won't be able to tell how many more stores have closed in those pictures, but you'll at least get to see a clearer picture of kind of the architecture of the mall, because this video is really blurry, I admit, and shaky. And a comment I made while I was walking out the door here is that the sun was setting, and the sun was setting on Westdale Mall. How appropriate. And one last thing here to the left, this used to be a restaurant called Bishop's Buffet. It was the best buffet in eastern Iowa, possibly all of Iowa. They closed, probably 15 years ago. And it's really sad. I miss them. Even then I was missing them because they had been closed for a long time then. And here I was noticing that the button for their automatic door wasn't working, so I had to actually push on the door to get it to open. So now we'll walk back out. And something else I'll post here after this video is I did a quick drive around of the mall property. And I will post that here as well. There I was just kind of noticing some storm clouds off to the north there. Yeah, that used to be the Von Mar. That used to be the Bishops. And pardon my fingers. I was kind of trying to jostle my phone while shading it from the sun and not drop it. And cross the street at the same time. There's the JCPenney, and there's the main entrance. Now, here is the quick drive around I did of the mall property. We're starting over here. This is where the Montgomery wards used to be. And at the time I recorded this, like I said, I did not remember what this was. So now we'll drive around the mall property. And there's kind of a little hill here separating the Von Mar from the Younkers. So I'll have to go around the hill. This was before any of the construction or redevelopment had started. So this was about 2 years before the mall finally closed. Alright, they're kind of still looking towards the Montgomery wards. And pardon my bad camera workmanship here. I was trying not to point it into the sun and also paying attention to driving. By the way, never try to record video while driving. It's illegal in some states. Alright, now I'm still kind of trying to work my way around towards the Younkers. Alright, there's the Younkers. This is the south end of the mall we're looking at here. The The Montgomery Wards is on the east end of the mall, so now the Younkers is on the south end. The Younkers building is still standing today. It's the center part of the mall that they tore down, and also the former Montgomery Ward building. The white part of the building, you see there's kind of the central part of the mall. Now I'm kind of driving around. And here I actually kind of goofed up and started actually leaving the mall parking lot. I did not mean to do that. It had been a long time since I'd been to Westdale Mall, so I'd kind of forgotten how some of the roadways are. Now we're kind of briefly looking at some of the outbuildings that used to be here. I don't remember what all used to be here, but I know there used to be a pet store here called Paws and Claws. I think where that colony thing is. And then the movie theater. And I don't remember what else was there. But I remember going to that movie theater with one of my aunts once. But I believe this outbuilding has been torn down as well. That's that little building right there that I'm looking at. That, at the time, was a Mexican restaurant of some sort, I believe. Or a sports bar. I don't remember for sure which. Okay, there's the Younkers again. There's the central part of the building. All the light colored that you see is gone now. And there's the Von Mar behind those trees, the darker part. That is still there. That's being converted into office space, I believe. Yeah, that's the Von Mar. And then there's more central part of the mall that's been torn down. That lighter colored part of the building. And then there's the main entrance. That's the one that I went in and came out earlier in the video. Then there's the JCPenney's. The JCPenney's is still there. And we'll drive around. The JCPenney's is on the north side of the building. The Von Mar was on the west side. The JCPenney's, that's another retail disaster in progress. Don't know how much longer they'll be around. A little better off than Sears, but eventually JCPenney's probably going to go under too. I hate to say it, because that was another store I remember going to as a kid. Yeah, now we're kind of driving up on where the Montgomery Wards was again. And so there's the Montgomery Wards, backlit by a setting sun. That's pretty much it. That's our complete lap of Westdale Mall, as it was in September of 2012. Now I'll kind of share some pictures with you that I took not long before the mall finally closed. And I want to thank you for watching. Again, I apologize for the shakiness of the video. I recommend Dramamine. That's really good for helping nausea. And I hope you have a good day or a good night or whatever time it is where you happen to be. Thank you.